This strange and unexplained connection between Hammersmith's Galena Road, Avebury, Stonehenge, the Great Dragon Line and the Kingston and Glastonbury zodiacs is made even more curious by the fact that many of the active participants in the original festival scene were themselves ultimately based, just as many of them still are, in and around the effigies of London's hidden prehistoric Star Temple, centred on the Royal Borough of Kingston and its ancient coronation stone. The latter-day urban successor to the Stonehenge Free Festival is Kingston's annual Green Fair, one of the most important events of the metropolitan environmentalist scene. Taking place at Canbury Gardens on the Zodiac's airy Libra in effigy, this entirely sun and wind-powered music, children's and ecology event has influenced constructive change on a whole variety of different levels, so it is perhaps doubly significant that Gerard Winstanley's diggers chose a site near the Zodiac's Gemini effigy for the setting up of their agrarian cooperative at nearby St George's Hill in 1649, thus linking the Stonehenge Free Festival movement to that of the parliamentarian diggers of the Cromwellian era. Travelling north and west once again to where the Icknield Way and the Ridgeway run into and merge with the meridians of the Great Dragon Line, we find another semi-urban locality in which another outpost of Winstanleyist actions and ideas flourished during the mid-1990s in the shadow of Great Bramingham's Warden Hills. In the midst of an ancient prehistoric landscape in which genuine past traditions relating to the same primordial canon of Celtic and pre-Celtic mythology are part of a living oral folklore, the Luton-based Exodus Rave Party Collective set up their own housing action zone to combat the local housing crisis in true modern Winstanleyist tradition. Yet again, the once sacred prehistoric landscape in which these events took place is tapped into the Stoke Mandeville Great Dragon Line alignments with which John Hampden's former family seat is itself geomantically aligned. A clue as to all of this being something considerably more than coincidence is provided by Oliver Cromwell's decision to stage the historic level of debates at Putney Church. Thus, what was probably the most important gathering of the radical parliamentary left to have been staged during the Civil War era, before its ruthless suppression in the run-up to the establishment of the Protectorate, appears to have taken place at a key point in an ancient ritual landscape with direct links to our lost Druidic democracy. Curiously enough, just as St Dunstan of Glastonbury was himself of Celtic descent, so too was Oliver Cromwell, whose original family surname was ap Gwilym or Williams, a fact which may well point to his own political ideology having been linked to that of the Druid revivalist Iolo Morganwg. This largely unrecognised connection between the 17th century parliamentary movement and the later 18th century Welsh champions of democratic right is given further credence by the fact that Cromwell and Hampden's ancestors can be shown to have migrated from Wales in the royal train of Henry Tudor, being descended from genuine Dark Age Arthurian dynasts and the self-same ancient British princes who made war on Julius Caesar. Caesar's meeting on Wimbledon Common with a Druid faction hostile to the British chieftain Cassivellaunus, with whom he was involved in a war, was probably to obtain key information on the topography and geography of Britain. Of relevance perhaps is the fact that the central trackway that runs through Caesar's camp leads directly to Kingston and the former site of the Saxon chapel in which its king's stone was formerly housed. The trackways that crisscross what is now Wimbledon Golf Course can be followed through Kingston right the way across southeast England, where they filter into the prehistoric Ridgeway. This great Celtic and pre-Celtic superhighway, which provided proper indigenous trading links long before the establishment of any Roman roads, would itself have taken the prehistoric traveller as far as Wayland's Smithy and beyond. As we have already seen, the legend of Wayland the Smith and his imp apprentice seems to contain definite parallels to that which we have found at Putney and Fulham. Both legends involve giants, in the case of Putney and Fulham's churches, two gargantuan church-building sisters, the throwing of gigantic objects, in the latter case a hammer, and, as one might likewise expect, in the case of a series of legends that are in some way interconnected with one another, both would appear to have connections with an enigmatic giant of a smith. In a version of the Wayland Smithy legend recounted by Sir Walter Scott, Wayland is the phantom shoer of any horse left here for the night, for the fee of a silver penny, a curious anecdote which may link the site to the minting of Celtic coins, which are characteristic for their depiction of divine horses, an image likewise etched into the prehistoric ramparts of nearby Uffington Castle. We know from early written sources that there is evidence to suggest that horses may have played an important role in the enthronement of early Celtic sacral kings. And we also have reason to believe that Uffington itself may well have been a royal centre of some kind during the Iron Age. Taking this into consideration, what we know about the links between the ritual landscapes of Putney, Fulham, Wimbledon and Kingston, all of which appear to have had connections with the prehistoric predecessors of King Alfred's West Saxon dynasty, several of whom were crowned at Kingston by Dunstan of Glastonbury, it is perhaps significant that Alfred himself summoned his army to do battle with the Danes here in Oxfordshire, just a stone's throw from Uffington's sacred horse. On the outermost fringes of the hill fort itself stands an ancient ritual mound linked in legend with St George and the Dragon. In the Glastonbury zodiac, the constellation of Draco, or the Dragon, falls directly over the arm of Sagittarius. Is this what brought Alfred from his lair at Athelney on the Great Dragon Line to summon his army to battle with Uffington's ancient Blowing Stone? And is there a link between the Blowing Stone's ancient festival and Kingston in Surrey's traditional football game, itself with apparent links to the King's Stone's royal ritual origins? Over to Mary Kane. Can you tell me about the Kingston football game and its origins?
This seems to be the oldest legend of Kingston, as far as I can find out. It comes in Byden's History of Kingston. Kenwal, a West Saxon king, seems to have been based in Kingston, was lured to Merton by the love of a fair maid, and there killed by a jealous rival and near relative, whose name was Cunard perhaps, the same as the shipping line. When the men of Kenwal found that their king had been killed, they were furious, and they marched from Kingston all the way to Merton, and a great battle ensued between the two factions. They killed Cunard and kicked his head all the way back to Kingston. The battle was reenacted every hot tide in Kingston Market, with the two bridges, the Clattering Bridge and the Thames Bridge, as the goalposts. And this went on for centuries until the burghers of Kingston got tired of having their windows broken, and the whole thing had become something of an orgy and a riot. So they moved the Kingstonian footballers out along the Richmond Road, where they still play to this day.